Hello, this is UZ Report World News with me, Davron Jumaev. The construction of another solar photovoltaic power plant with a capacity of 40 kilowatt has begun in Tashkent region. The plant will be located on the territory of the settlement Nurli Zamin. The country's private photovoltaic power plant in the Navoy region with a capacity of 100 megawatt is built by UAE-based Masdar. The plant will generate 270 gigawatt hours of electricity annually from solar energy, enough to power more than 30,000 homes. It will also prevent emissions of 156,000 metric tons of greenhouse gases per year. Canadian Waterways Technologies Inc. has announced its intention to launch a 1 million drip irrigation project in Uzbekistan. My colleague has the details.
The company is intending to launch a system of drip irrigation for fields with crops of carrots, potatoes, and corn, as well as almond groves. New agricultural methods are expected to increase productivity. I am very happy with the signing of the contract. This is the second large-scale irrigation project that we are implementing in Uzbekistan. We had a major cotton project in 2019 and 2020, said Ohad Haber, chairman and CEO of the company. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev in December last year inked a new decree that aims at deepening measures on implementation of water-saving technologies in agriculture. According to the document, the rate of implementation of drip and sprinkle irrigation systems is expected to increase fivefold in the coming years. In the current year, water-saving technologies are to be introduced on 430,000 hectares of land. Agricultural producers will enjoy subsidies to cover part of the cost of introducing water-saving technologies in the cultivation of agricultural products.
Uzbekistan is intending to draw up a draft children's ombudsman. It aims at strengthening the national child protection system. Details of the draft were discussed at a roundtable chaired by Uzbek Ombudsman for Children on Wednesday.
Akmal Saidov, director of Uzbekistan's National Human Rights Center, suggested submitting the draft to local and international field experts and then introducing the reviewed draft for public discussion. He added that part of the efforts to improve the child protection legislation, it is important to examine the status of ombudsmen appointed abroad.
For instance, in Russian Federation and the Republic of Kazakhstan, ombudsmen function as an independent body. Therefore, it is recommended to hold discussions on determining their status in our country. Besides, the draft should be tested for compliance with international treaties and agreements ratified by our country.
The draft is expected to be prepared by October 1st, 2021, with the participation of the Legislative Chamber, the National Center for Human Rights, the Ministry of Justice, the Agency for Youth Affairs, and other ministries and departments. It envisages the creation of a new body while maintaining a single national system of human rights protection, elevating the protection of children's rights and interests in the country to a new level. The program also provides for establishment of a public fund for child support until September 1st, 2021, with 100 billion sums or approximately $9.5 million to be contributed from the state budget.
Uzbekistan's justice bodies expressed their views on ensuring the rule of law in the republic during a press club on Wednesday, taking into account the measures to eliminate any external or internal interferences to the work of judges. In addition, the event participants noted that the judicial system should always seek a transformation from a punitive to a human rights body. A great deal of work has been done in the country to transform the courts. In 2016, the courts issued virtually no acquittals. In 2020, as the president mentioned in his message, 719 persons were acquitted. According to international standards, district and regional judges must be fully independent. In this regard, proposals are being developed and a draft law is being prepared. At least 3 people were killed and another 3 wounded in a thermal power plant blast in Uzbekistan on Wednesday. The explosion was caused by a mixture of coal, dust and air in the 5th power unit of the Novo-Angren thermal power plant located in the eastern Angren town of the Tashkent region, the country's Emergency Situations Ministry said in a statement. The work on the 5th power unit was suspended recently for maintenance procedures. The ministry also said that all of the victims were employees of the service company that was carrying out scheduled maintenance work. An investigation was launched into the causes of the explosion. The 20th of January commemorated the 146th birthday of Mehmood Hoxha Beyburi, a jaded activist, writer and journalist who greatly contributed to Uzbek literature. To honor his memory, Tashkent held a press conference that attracted over 10 scholars from Russia, USA, Turkey and Azerbaijan.
The event featured presentations on the life and work of Mahmud Hoxha Beyburi, as well as the results of the research conducted by modern press and media representatives. Some feature films, documentaries and theater play about the founder of the Uzbek dramaturgy are now being produced in Uzbekistan. Sherzadkhon Kudrakhodzha, president of Uzbekistan's University of Journalism and Mass Communication, said that young people should understand that many scientific discoveries were made thanks to the ancestors, as the problems existing a century ago have not changed. The historical experience reveals that people should break free of prejudices and conventions, he added. Besides, Sherzadkhon Kudrakhodzha highlighted the importance of promoting education as well as supporting cultural values.
Uzbek singer Jahangir Otajonov, who has recently ended his musical career, announced his intention to nominate his candidacy in the upcoming presidential elections. Today I found out that preparatory work for the presidential elections will begin in March. I have expressed my opinion about these as a joke in my speeches before, but there is some truth in every joke. I now openly declare that I have the intention to become president. I hope that I will become one. After all, the Quran says that everyone who strives will achieve the goal, Otajonov said in a video posted on his Instagram. At the same time, Otajonov stressed that he has no claims against the current leader. He is working as hard as he can because it is very difficult to achieve something, he said, promising to do everything necessary to participate in the presidential election. I will create a party if necessary. If I don't succeed this time, then next time I will definitely win, he added.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
It was an inauguration unlike any other in U.S. history. Democrat Joe Biden on Wednesday was sworn in as the country's 46th president in a ceremony set against the backdrop of a devastating pandemic, unprecedented security, and a deeply divided nation.
This is America's day. This is democracy's day.
Standing on the steps of the U.S. Capitol exactly 2 weeks after a mob of Donald Trump supporters stormed the building in a deadly siege, Biden called for an end to the country's, quote, uncivil war, amid warnings of possible renewed violence.
This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
It was a celebration of democracy and diversity, as former Senator Kamala Harris made history as the first woman, first Black American, and first Asian American to become vice president. Attending dignitaries, including former U.S. Presidents Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton, wore masks and sat several feet apart. Notably absent was Trump, who flouted one last convention by refusing to meet with Biden or attend his inauguration, breaking with a political tradition seen as affirming the peaceful transfer of power.
A goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form.
Top Republicans, including Vice President Mike Pence and the party's congressional leaders, skipped Trump's send-off earlier in the day and attended Biden's inauguration instead. Lady Gaga, Jennifer Lopez, and Garth Brooks performed for the occasion.
A nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished.
And at 22, Amanda Gorman made history as the youngest inaugural poet. Some right-wing extremist groups had vowed to disrupt Biden's inauguration in the wake of the January 6th attack, but only scattered protests emerged on Wednesday. The National Mall, typically packed with throngs of supporters, instead was filled with nearly 200,000 U.S. flags. Later in the day, Biden attended a wreath-laying ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia, accompanied by Obama, Bush, and Clinton. Afterward, Biden's motorcade joined an abbreviated parade as he made his way to the White House. There were no inaugural balls or other parties this year due to the pandemic, but Biden, known for his folksy ways, left his limousine along Pennsylvania Avenue despite security concerns and walked with his family to his new home, greeting friends and reporters along the way.
Feels great. It feels good.
Newly sworn-in U.S. President Joe Biden had barely set foot in the White House before he got straight to work, signing more than a dozen executive actions on Wednesday addressing the coronavirus pandemic, climate change, and racial inequality, and undoing some of his predecessor's most high-profile policies. Among the actions, he started the process of rejoining the Paris Climate Accord and canceled the presidential permit granted for the controversial Keystone XL oil pipeline. He moved to end a travel ban Trump put in place on some Muslim-majority countries and called upon his administration to strengthen the DACA program for immigrants brought to the United States as children.
And I thought with the state of the nation today is no time to waste.
Biden also ordered the wearing of masks and social distancing in all federal buildings and on all federal lands, and moved to end a national emergency declaration that was the basis for diverting some federal funds to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. While former President Donald Trump broke with tradition by skipping the inauguration, leaving early Wednesday morning for Palm Beach, he did stick to one modern-day ritual, leaving behind a letter for his successor. Without going into detail, Biden cast the letter in a positive light, saying he didn't want to say more until he'd spoken with Trump directly.
The president wrote a very generous letter. It's because it was private. I will not talk about it until I talk to him, but it was generous.
China announced on Wednesday it would slap sanctions on outgoing U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and 27 other top officials under Donald Trump. The Chinese Foreign Ministry announced the sanctions around the time of U.S. President Joe Biden's inauguration and said it would work to cooperate with Biden's new administration. But a spokeswoman for Biden's National Security Council on Wednesday called the sanctions, quote, unproductive and cynical, and an attempt to play to partisan divides, urging both Republicans and Democrats to condemn the action. In its statement, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said Pompeo and others had, quote, gravely interfered in China's internal affairs, undermined China's interests, offended the Chinese people, and seriously disrupted China-U.S. relations. The move reflected China's anger over an accusation Pompeo made on his final day in office, that China had committed genocide against Uyghur Muslims in its Xinjiang region. Biden's Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, said Tuesday he agreed with that assessment. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying dismissed Pompeo's allegations Wednesday, calling him a laughingstock and a clown. China's latest decision comes after Trump imposed sanctions on Chinese officials and companies last week for alleged misdeeds in the South China Sea. The 28 ex-officials and their immediate family members being sanctioned also include Trade Chief Peter Navarro, National Security Advisors Robert O'Brien and John Bolton, Health Secretary Alex Azar, UN Ambassador Kelly Craft, and former top Trump aide Steve Bannon. The sanctions bar them from entering mainland China, Hong Kong, or Macau, and companies associated with them would be restricted from doing business with China. China has repeatedly rejected accusations of abuse in Xinjiang, where a United Nations panel has estimated at least 1 million ethnic Uyghurs and other Muslims have been detained in camps.
Democrats took the majority of the U.S. Senate on Wednesday, giving the party control of both houses of Congress and the White House for the first time in a decade. Vice President Kamala Harris swore in 3 junior senators hours after the inauguration. Georgia Democrats Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, and Alex Padilla, a Democrat from California. Harris, a Democrat, will now hold a decisive tie-breaking vote in the Senate. Warnock and Ossoff won upset victories in a runoff election earlier this month, splitting the Senate 50-50 between Democrats and Republicans, while Padilla was appointed by Harris to become California's first Latino senator. after Harris resigned to assume her new role as vice president.
The resignation of former Senator Kamala D. Harris of California. Yeah, that was very weird. Okay.
The new arrangement gives Democratic President Joe Biden a narrow advantage to push policies through Congress. Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer became majority leader, and Republican Mitch McConnell was demoted to minority leader. Both have pledged to work together. McConnell even congratulated President Biden, a former senator he's known for years. The new Senate is poised to hold the second impeachment trial for former President Donald Trump, on a charge of inciting a deadly insurrection at the U.S. Capitol earlier this month. It's unclear when that trial will begin.
Fireworks over the White House after Joe Biden was sworn in as the new U.S. president. Fireworks on global markets too. The MSCI index of Asian shares outside Japan touched fresh record highs on Thursday, up around 0.8%. South Korea's Kospi index put on 1.5%, while Tokyo's Nikkei rose 0.8% to close at a 30-year high. Investors bet the new administration will mean more and bigger stimulus. They note signs of Republican willingness to work with Biden on a $1.9 trillion spending package. Relief, too, that the transition of power proved orderly in the end. The gains in Asia followed fresh record highs on Wall Street, with the Nasdaq index adding close to 2%. But the prospect of a US spending splurge weighed on the greenback. In Asian trade, the dollar index was down around 0.2%.
A once makeshift hospital in the Chinese city of Wuhan has been turned into a huge museum. On display is the city's battle and ultimate triumph over the coronavirus pandemic. The Parlor Convention Center is now a centerpiece of China's propaganda push to control the narrative about the virus. The exhibition includes mannequins wearing PPE, photographs of doctors and nurses, and signed medical overalls. There's a whole wall devoted to those who lost their lives on the front line, including Li Wenlian, the whistleblower doctor who issued an early warning about the outbreak and was reprimanded by authorities. Plenty of space is dedicated to quotes, photos and videos of Chinese President Xi Jinping, who visited Wuhan towards the end of the city's lockdown. Museum goers said they were proud of Wuhan's resilience and cohesiveness.
It is very powerful to see that so many people from all across our country came to support Wuhan. This sort of unity, especially when I was studying abroad, it's hard to see this kind of cohesiveness exist in other countries. This is something very different.
I think the people of Wuhan have been through a lot, and they really are amazing. They sacrificed their freedoms during Wuhan's lockdown. They contributed a lot to China's fight against the pandemic.
Wuhan is believed to be where the pandemic began. In December 2019, the first cases of COVID-19 were detected there. And a month later, the city of 11 million people was locked down in an effort to stem the spread of the disease. A team of scientists from the World Health Organization arrived in Wuhan last week to start their much-anticipated and delayed investigation into the origins of the pandemic. Life has largely gone back to normal in the city, but in China's northeast, it's a different story. Tens of millions of people have been put under a new lockdown as the region battles its worst wave of new infections since March 2020. Worldwide, more than 2 million people have now died from the disease.
Record closing highs for all three major Wall Street indices on Wednesday, the same day Joe Biden became the 46th president of the United States. Wall Street was relieved with the inauguration going off without a hitch, despite the threat of unrest. Liz Miller is president of Summit Place Financial Advisors.
The inauguration is actually very important. You know, we did see all the major indices sort of dipping around 11 o'clock going into it, and then it's coming out of that rather smooth transition, at least compared to what was expected. And, you know, those who were enthused by the messages of hope in the future, driving the major indices to new highs into the afternoon.
By the closing bell, the Dow rallied 257 points. The S&P 500 jumped 52. The Nasdaq surged 260. Politics could only take partial credit for the rally. Netflix was by far the star of the day. The streaming media giant, which has been besieged by a growing list of new challengers, said it will no longer need to borrow billions of dollars to finance its TV shows and movies. The main reason? It continues to take in millions of new paying subscribers. Netflix ended last year with more than 200 million paying customers worldwide. Shares of Netflix surged 17% to an all-time high. Netflix's quarterly results fueled enthusiasm for other tech companies like Google parent Alphabet that have yet to report. Alphabet shares jumped to a record high as well. In other high-profile earnings, Morgan Stanley, the last of the big U.S. banks to report, smashed estimates thanks to strength in its trading unit. Procter & Gamble, one of the world's largest consumer products companies, boosted its full-year sales guidance for the second time after demand for its cleaning products remained at an elevated level due to the health crisis.
These were the top headlines for today. Stay safe and goodbye.